Hey everyone, and welcome back to Podcast English Story, your go-to spot for improving your English through engaging stories and practical tips. Today, we're tackling a big one, understanding native English speakers. If you've ever felt like they're speaking a different language entirely. Too fast, too much slang, just confusing. You're in the right place. It's a common challenge, but the good news is it's absolutely solvable. In this episode, we're going to break down why understanding native speakers can be tough. And more importantly, I'm going to give you some actionable strategies to make it easier. We'll look at everything from their lightning fast speed to those tricky accents and that sneaky connected speech. So ready to finally make sense of those native English conversations. Let's get started. First, let's understand the root of the problem. It's not just about knowing vocabulary and grammar. Spoken English, especially from native speakers, has its own set of hurdles. Think about it. They often speak incredibly quickly and don't always pronounce words distinctly. They blend sounds, drop letters, and use shortcuts like I'm instead of I am. For example, going to becomes gonna and want to. Sounds like wanna. A far cry from textbook English. Then there are those accents. English is spoken globally, and every region has its own unique way of speaking. Whether it's American, British, Australian, or any other, each has its own sounds and rhythms. Listening to an unfamiliar accent can feel like a whole new language. And let's not forget slang and informal language. Everyday conversations are packed with slang that you probably never learned in a classroom. If someone asks, "What's up?" they're just saying, "Hello," or "How are you?" Finally, there's connected speech. When words run together so closely, it's hard to separate them. "I'm going to go" can sound like "I'm gonna go." If you're not used to this fast speech can be a real struggle. But don't worry, all of this is normal. Native speakers aren't always perfect speakers, and with a little practice, you'll understand them much better. It takes time, but it's totally achievable. And in this episode, we're going to explore some practical tips to help you get there. On. Listen to real conversations. To truly master English listening, relying solely on scripted lessons or slowly recorded dialogues isn't enough. Native speakers in everyday life don't communicate in such a textbook manner. They use a natural speaking speed, often quite fast combined with slang informal expressions, and especially connected speech where words are stuck together, making it difficult for learners to distinguish individual syllables. Therefore, immersing yourself in real listening environments is crucial. Start by finding abundant listening resources like podcasts and YouTube videos. It's important to choose topics that genuinely interest you, whether it's sports, cooking, news, entertainment, or any other field. Your interest will help you stay motivated and focus more when listening. Initially, you might find it challenging not to understand every word, but don't get discouraged. The goal at this stage is to get used to the natural rhythm speed and intonation of native speakers. Try to grasp the main idea of the conversation instead of trying to translate each word individually. A helpful tip is not to hesitate to listen to difficult parts again and again. Over time, your ears will gradually become accustomed to the sounds and sentence structures, and you'll start recognizing more words and phrases naturally. Think of listening to real conversations as a way to train your ears, making them more sensitive to spoken English. Pay attention to accents. English is a global language, widely used in many countries and regions around the world. This has led to the formation of countless different accents and dialects. If you're only familiar with one or two specific English accents, for example, Standard American English, you might have difficulty understanding people who speak English with a British Australian or even other regional accents within the same country. Differences in the pronunciation of vowels, consonants, stress, and rhythm can make it feel like they're speaking a completely different language. To overcome this barrier, actively familiarizing yourself with various accents is essential. Seek out listening resources with a diversity of accents. You can watch TV shows and movies from different countries, listen to podcasts or radio shows with hosts and guests from various regions. Initially, you can focus on common accents like American British and Australian. Once you're more comfortable, you can expand to less common accents. When listening, try to identify the unique characteristics of each accent. For example, British English often tends to pronounce some final T, sounds more clearly, while American English might drop them. Australian English has unique vowel shifts. Practicing identifying these differences will make you more flexible in understanding various English speakers. Don't be discouraged if you find it difficult at first. This is a process that requires patience and regular practice. 3. Focus on keywords. In a natural English conversation, native speakers often talk quite quickly and may use many filler words, connecting words or phrases that aren't crucial to the core meaning. Trying to understand every single word in such situations can make you feel overwhelmed and easily miss the main point. An effective listening skill is to focus on the keywords in a sentence. Keywords are usually the nouns, referring to people, things, events, verbs indicating actions, adjectives describing, and important adverbs. These are the words that carry the main information of the sentence. Smaller words like prepositions in, on, at, articles a, and auxiliary verbs were often play a grammatical role and don't carry much content, meaning native speakers sometimes even omit or shorten these words in casual speech. For example, in the sentence, I'm going to the store to buy some groceries. The keywords are going, store, buy, and groceries. Even if you don't clearly hear or understand the words to and some, you can still grasp the main idea of the sentence. The speaker is going to the store to get food. To train this skill, try listening to short conversations and actively identifying the keywords. Then try to summarize the content of the conversation based only on the keywords you heard. Regular practice will help you improve your ability to grasp important information, even when the speaker talks fast or uses vocabulary you're not entirely familiar with. 4. Use subtitles. Subtitles are an incredibly useful tool in the process of learning English listening, especially when you're just starting out or when you're trying to get used to a new accent. Subtitles allow you to simultaneously see the text of what's being said, helping you connect sounds with written words. This not only improves your listening comprehension, but also reinforces your reading skills and expands your vocabulary. An effective strategy is to start with subtitles in your native language if you find it too difficult to listen to English directly. Once you feel more comfortable with the speed and intonation switch to using English subtitles. At this point, you can follow the exact words being spoken and how they are pronounced. This is particularly helpful in recognizing slang idioms or common phrases. Finally, when you feel more confident, challenge yourself by watching without any subtitles at all. This will force you to focus entirely on listening and try to understand the content based on what you hear. However, it's important to note that subtitles aren't always perfectly accurate, especially with informal conversations or those containing a lot of slang. Use subtitles as a helpful aid, not as a complete crutch. Over time, you'll notice your listening comprehension improving significantly without needing their assistance. 5. Break speech into chunks. When listening to a native speaker talk, especially when they're telling a story or presenting a complex idea, they often tend to speak in long and continuous sentences. This can make it difficult for learners to follow and process the information. However, in reality, even native speakers often break their speech into smaller chunks, especially in casual conversations. They might pause slightly between ideas phrases or after completing a clause. To improve your listening comprehension, you can actively practice the skill of breaking down speech into chunks as you listen. Instead of trying to understand an entire long sentence all at once, focus on identifying the natural pauses in their speech. For example, in the sentence, "I went to the store, and then I saw my friend and we decided to grab some coffee." There are natural breaks after store and friend. You can practice by listening to short conversations and actively pausing after each chunk or clause. Then try to understand the meaning of each part before continuing to listen to the next. This technique helps you process information in smaller, more manageable units, making it easier to digest and remember. It's particularly useful when you're trying to get used to the fast speaking speed of native speakers. Over time, you'll gradually become accustomed to automatically breaking down speech into smaller segments in your head, helping you follow conversations more effectively. Shadowing. The shadowing technique is a unique and effective method for practicing both English listening and speaking. It requires you to listen to a native speaker talk and try to repeat exactly what they say, almost simultaneously mimicking their speed, rhythm, and pronunciation as closely as possible. Imagine yourself as the speaker's shadow, copying their every sound and intonation. This is a powerful technique because it trains both your ears and your mouth at the same time. When you listen attentively to repeat, your ears become more sensitive to the sounds and pronunciation of native speakers. Simultaneously trying to pronounce along with them will help you improve your own pronunciation, intonation, and natural rhythm. To start shadowing, choose short audio or video clips with natural speech that you can easily follow. Listen to 1 or 2 sentences, then pause and try to repeat exactly what you just heard. Focus on mimicking how the speaker pronounces each word, paying attention to their stress and intonation. Don't worry if you can't keep up or your pronunciation isn't perfect at first. Shadowing requires practice and patience, Start with a slower speed and gradually increase it as you become more confident. Regular practice with this technique will help you get used to how native speakers talk naturally and significantly improve your listening comprehension. 7. Practice listening to different accents. As mentioned earlier, the diversity of English accents can be a significant challenge for learners. To become proficient in understanding various English speakers, actively exposing yourself to different types of accents is essential. Instead of only focusing on one or two familiar accents, broaden your listening range to include English spoken in various countries and regions. You can seek out diverse listening resources such as movies, TV shows, podcasts, radio broadcasts, and interviews from countries like the United Kingdom, the United States, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and even countries where English is a second language, but has distinct accents, e.g., Singapore, India, South Africa. Each accent will have its own unique characteristics in terms of vowel and consonant pronunciation, stress patterns, and rhythm. When you practice listening to different accents, your brain will gradually become accustomed to these variations and become more flexible in processing auditory information. Initially, you might find it difficult to understand a new accent, but don't get discouraged. Be persistent and practice regularly. Over time, you'll notice a significant improvement in your comprehension, and you'll feel more confident when communicating with people from different parts of the world. Slow down the speaking speed. One of the biggest hurdles for learners when listening to native speakers is their speaking speed. Sometimes they talk so quickly that you can't keep up with processing the information and feel left behind. Fortunately, in the age of technology, you can take advantage of tools to adjust the playback speed of many listening resources. Most podcast apps, video platforms like YouTube, and language learning applications offer options to reduce the audio playback speed. Take advantage of this feature, especially when you're listening to a dialogue or lecture that you find difficult to follow. By slowing down the speed, you'll have more time to clearly hear each word. Analyze sentence structures and grasp the meaning. Once you feel more comfortable with the slower speed, try gradually increasing it. This process should be gradual and systematic. The ultimate goal is to be able to understand the natural speaking speed of native speakers, but starting with a slower pace will help you build a solid foundation and increase your confidence. Think of adjusting the speed as a valuable support tool in the early stages of listening practice. 9. Don't be afraid to ask for clarification. During the process of learning English, especially when you're trying to improve your listening comprehension, it's perfectly normal not to understand something. Don't feel embarrassed or hesitant to ask the speaker to repeat or explain again. Most native speakers are very understanding and willing to help those who are learning their language. If you don't clearly hear a word, a phrase, or don't understand the speaker's meaning, politely ask them to repeat. Could you say that again, please? Or explain it in a different way. Could you explain that in a different way? Usually, the person you're talking to will be happy to assist you. Asking for clarification not only helps you understand the information better, but also shows the speaker that you're genuinely trying to listen and comprehend. Avoid pretending to understand when you actually don't. This can lead to unnecessary misunderstandings in communication. Be brave and ask questions when needed. It's an important part of the learning process and effective communication. 10. Use context clues. In a real conversation, you won't always hear every word clearly or understand all the vocabulary being used. However, you can still grasp the main idea of the conversation by utilizing context clues. Context includes the communication situation, the topic being discussed, and even the body language and facial expressions of the speaker. When you hear a word or phrase that you're unsure of, try to infer its meaning based on the surrounding information. For example, if you're talking about food and someone says, "I'm starving, I could eat a horse." Even if you've never heard the phrase, "eat a horse," you can guess that the person is very hungry based on the word starving and the general context of the conversation. Practice this skill by paying attention to the details in the conversation and trying to deduce the meaning of unfamiliar words or phrases. Over time, you'll become better at filling in the gaps of information based on context, helping you understand native speakers more easily, even when you don't understand every single word. 11. Be patient with yourself. Learning a new language, especially the skill of listening comprehension, is a process that requires time, persistence, and most importantly, patience with yourself. There will be times when you feel discouraged because you can't understand everything native speakers say, or when you feel like your progress is too slow. This is perfectly normal and an inevitable part of the language learning journey. Don't compare yourself to others, especially those who have had many years of English learning experience or native speakers. Everyone has a different learning pace and different starting points. Focus on your own progress. Even the smallest steps, like understanding a new word in a conversation, or grasping the main idea of a sentence that you previously found difficult, are achievements worth acknowledging and celebrating. Remember that fluency doesn't happen overnight. It's the result of consistent practice and unwavering perseverance. Instead of focusing on what you can't yet understand, focus on what you have understood and what you have learned. Treat yourself kindly and give yourself time to develop. Patience and a positive attitude will be your best companions on the path to mastering English listening skills. 12. Practice. Listening comprehension exercises. To improve your listening skills in a structured and effective way, incorporating structured listening comprehension exercises into your study schedule is crucial. There are many resources available that offer these exercises, from language learning apps and websites specializing in English listening practice to textbooks. Listening comprehension exercises typically involve listening to an audio clip, which could be a dialogue, a short lecture, news report, or a movie excerpt, and then answering questions related to the content you just heard. These questions may focus on testing your ability to grasp specific details, the main idea, or infer meaning from context. Practicing with structured listening comprehension exercises offers several benefits. They help you train your ability to focus. Your listening identifies specific information and develop your skills in processing auditory information. You can start with exercises that match your current skill level and gradually increase the difficulty as you feel more confident. Think of this as a way to test and evaluate your progress in listening skills. 13. Improve your vocabulary. A rich vocabulary is a solid foundation for listening comprehension. The more words you know, the more you'll be able to recognize and understand what native speakers are saying. Conversely, if your vocabulary is limited, you'll have difficulty keeping up with conversations, especially when the speaker uses words or phrases you've never heard before. To improve your vocabulary, actively learn new words every day. You can write down new words you encounter while listening to podcasts, watching movies, or reading books or articles. Then, look up their meanings and try to use them in example sentences to remember them longer. Focus on learning common vocabulary that frequently appears in everyday conversations. In addition, learning collocations is also very important. These are groups of words that naturally go together in English. For example, make a decision, take a break. Mastering collocations will help you understand how native speakers use language more naturally. 14. Get comfortable with idioms. Idioms are phrases whose meaning is different from the literal meaning of the individual words. They are often used widely in everyday conversations by native speakers and can be confusing for learners who are not familiar with them. For example, "It's raining cats and dogs" doesn't literally mean animals are falling from the sky. It means it's raining very heavily. To get comfortable with idioms, actively learn some of the most common ones in English. You can find lists of frequently used idioms online or in specialized English learning books. When you hear an idiom that you don't understand, write it down and look up its meaning. Try using that idiom in your own example. Sentences to remember it and understand how it's used in real-world contexts. Becoming familiar with idioms will help you understand English more deeply and communicate more naturally with native speakers. 15. Practice active listening. Active listening is an important skill not only in language learning, but also in general communication. Active listening means you are fully engaged and focused on the speaker rather than just passively hearing the words. When you listen actively, you pay attention to the speaker's tone, body language, and the context of the conversation. A helpful technique in active listening is trying to rephrase what the speaker has just said in your own words. Paraphrasing. This helps you check if you have truly understood the speaker's meaning correctly. Also, avoid interrupting the speaker and let them finish their thoughts before you respond. This helps you catch all the details and better understand the complete message the speaker wants to convey. Practicing active listening will help you become a more effective listener and significantly improve your English comprehension. 16. Join conversation groups. Participating in English conversation groups is a great way to have the opportunity to practice your listening and speaking skills in a real and comfortable environment. You can look for online or in-person conversation groups at language centers, language clubs, or cultural exchange events. In conversation groups, you'll have the chance to listen to many people speaking English with different accents and styles. This is an excellent opportunity to get used to the diversity of spoken English and practice your comprehension in real communication situations. When participating in conversation groups, try to focus not only on speaking, but also on listening actively. Make sure you understand what others are saying before you offer your own opinions. This is a great way to get used to the pace of natural conversations and improve your ability to understand native speakers. 17. Focus on stress and intonation. In English, stress and intonation play a crucial role in conveying the meaning of a sentence. Stress refers to emphasizing a particular syllable or word in a sentence, while intonation is the rise and fall of the voice when speaking. Differences in stress and intonation can completely change the meaning of a sentence. For example, the sentence, "I didn't say you stole my book," can have different meanings depending on which word is emphasized. If you stress I, it implies someone else said it, not you. If you stress you, it implies you're denying that that specific person stole your book to improve your understanding of stress and intonation. Listen carefully to how native speakers emphasize words and change their pitch when they speak. Try to mimic their speaking patterns and practice repeating sentences with the correct stress and intonation. This will help you better understand the true meaning of what's being said and communicate more naturally. 18. Use transcripts and listen again. Transcripts are an incredibly useful tool to aid in your English listening practice. Many podcasts, YouTube videos, and other audio resources often provide full transcripts of their content. You can use transcripts to follow along with the text while you listen. An effective practice method is to first listen to the audio without looking at the transcript, trying to understand as much as possible. Then compare with the transcript to see what you missed. Finally, listen to the audio again while reading along with the transcript. This helps you connect the sounds with the written words and improves your ability to recognize vocabulary when listening. Once you feel more comfortable, try listening again without the transcript to check how much you've improved. 19. Learn to recognize filler words. In natural conversations, native speakers often use filler words like uh, you know, like, well, etc. These words usually don't carry much content, meaning, but are simply used to fill pauses while the speaker is thinking or transitioning between ideas. Initially, these filler words can be distracting or confusing for learners. However, recognizing and getting used to them is an important part of understanding natural English. Instead of trying to find meaning in these filler words, learn to ignore them and focus on the keywords and main information in the sentence. Over time, you'll automatically filter out filler words and concentrate more on the core content of the conversation. 20. Watch TED Talks and other educational videos. TED Talks are an excellent listening resource for English learners. The talks are usually presented by speakers from all over the world on various interesting topics. A key advantage is that the speakers often speak clearly, articulately, and at a moderate pace, making it easier for learners to follow. You can start by watching TED Talks with English subtitles to support your listening comprehension. Once you feel more confident, challenge yourself by watching without subtitles. TED Talks also often provide transcripts for most videos, allowing you to check parts you didn't understand clearly and learn new vocabulary. The diverse and engaging content of TED Talks will also help you stay interested in the learning process. 21. Focus on practical vocabulary. When you're trying to improve your ability to understand native speakers, focusing on practical vocabulary that is commonly used in everyday conversations is very helpful. While learning advanced vocabulary is good, you'll notice that native speakers often use common words and phrases in their daily lives. Start by learning vocabulary related to everyday activities, such as eating, traveling, working hobbies, and shopping. Practice using these words in example sentences so you can recognize them when native speakers use them. Focusing on practical vocabulary will help you feel more comfortable in everyday conversations and make it easier to understand what others are saying. 22. Listen to different types of audio. To develop a well-rounded listening skill, you should practice listening to various types of audio, including news, broadcasts, interviews, podcasts, radio shows, and YouTube videos. Each of these formats will expose you to different speaking styles and vocabulary. For example, news broadcasts tend to use more formal language, while podcasts or YouTube videos might be more casual and conversational. Exposing yourself to a variety of audio sources will help you become more flexible in understanding English in different contexts. 23. Keep a listening journal. A helpful tip for tracking your progress and reinforcing your listening knowledge is to keep a listening journal. In this journal, you can write down new words, phrases, or expressions that you hear while listening to English. You can also make notes about the context in which they were used and how the speaker pronounced them. Tracking the words and phrases that you find most difficult to understand will help you focus on learning them. You can even try using these words in your own speech to practice and reinforce what you've learned. 24. Use technology and apps. In today's world, there are countless apps and online tools available to help you improve your English listening skills. Language learning apps like Duolingo, Babbel, and Memrise often have listening exercises and quizzes to test your comprehension. Podcast apps like Spotify or Apple Podcasts offer a vast amount of English content at various levels. Additionally, apps that connect language learners with native speakers, such as HelloTalk or Tandem, are excellent tools for practicing listening in real conversations. Take advantage of these resources to make your English learning more effective and enjoyable. So, there you have it, folks. We've taken a deeper dive into how to overcome the challenges of listening to native English speakers. The most important thing to remember is that consistent practice makes a huge difference. Start applying these tips to your daily study habits today. Try picking a short podcast clip or a YouTube video and practicing one of the techniques we discussed. You could try listening and writing down the keywords or shadowing the speaker. Every time you practice, you're building a stronger foundation for your listening skills. I'd love to know which tip you're going to start with. Leave a comment below and share your practice plan. Don't forget to like this video if you found it helpful and subscribe to the Podcast English Story channel so you don't miss out on other interesting lessons and stories. Thanks for tuning in, and I wish you all the best on your journey to mastering English. I'll catch you in the next episode. Happy learning!